हमारे साथ रेप किया जा रहा है और हम लोग बड़ी मुश्किल से निकल के आके हम हिम्मत करके आज केस रजिस्टर करवाने। तो ये जो रेप केसेस का है ये धारा दिन पर दिन बढ़ता ही जा रहा है। समझ में नहीं आ रहा कि ये कैसे कम होगा और इसके लिए सख्त से सख्त कानून बनाना जाए। इसके लिए
unit is actually it should be done.
Actually, it should be. In case of young people, I mean, we know that you have to work with families, right? And for older women, I think it also depends on what their own relationship is with the family, right? Whether they are really seeing themselves as wanting to be located there. But one thing I'm glad you mentioned is that especially in the cases of abuse, etc., right? It's not even necessarily that only one person is a victim. There can be several women in the family, and sometimes the mother and the daughter and so on and so forth can all be victims. So in such situations also I think the need for family counseling helps. But I would not say that it is, it will always be the same. Actually, that's one of the problems with psychology. I think you cannot give those standard, absolutely mechanical answers because there is that factor which varies from case to case. But the general provision, I think, should be there for both types of work, individual and family work.
Yeah, next one. What you said about fear and shame, I totally agree, because I do not work so extensively like most of you do, but I do work on my own capacity. What I have observed is what I've observed, it takes a lot of courage to come out and speak, first of all, that you have been victimized of any sort. It might be mental, it might be physical or psychological. Why do we always say a rape is a physical assault? It's not. Then, once you come out and make a complaint, the society at large victimizes you. You have brought your family to shame. The family people wouldn't support you anymore. The society wouldn't stand by you because you have the guts to stand up and say the society is not functioning properly. And no society or no religion would accept that. Where do they go then? And we, in the society, teach our girl, you should be ashamed of yourself, of your body, of your sexuality, of everything that makes you a woman. Don't you think from the very childhood we should at least teach them that if something happens like that, it's not you at fault? A girl who is as young as 4, even younger, if she's raped, she will be always carrying that trauma and that stigma that she has been raped and she might have done something. What can a girl so young do? I fail to understand. And where counseling is concerned, I totally agree to Dr. Johuri that do we have counselors who are doing justice to counseling? Counseling doesn't only mean listening to the concern. It is a very deep-rooted thing which makes you believe, makes the victim believe in herself and brings back the faith. Are we really doing that?
Say that it's not absolutely true that there is no family or no space anywhere that is open. I mean, I think there are also spaces opening, right? I mean, families also, let me say, there are also families which are taking action, are willing to come up and so on. But I think the general problem is that, we need to have, as I said when I was talking, we need to have highly trained counselors. I would not say that no one without training can work, because sometimes people without training can also do very good work. It depends on your personal experiences and also the amount of experience you have seen around you. However, some type of work very good trained, well-trained counselors can also do, or therapists, whatever you want to call them. The other thing is that it's a general thing you're saying, everyone is talking about it, what can we do? So everything needs to be done by us. From law to education, And when you say when a child, you said this in the morning also, and I was wondering, when a child is born, who's that we? Who's the we? We all have, many of us have complicity in the cultures in which we are living. So, mothers, for example, I've done a lot of work with mothers. That's been my main area of research. They feel torn apart between the position of a wife and the mother, very often. And very often they take patriarchal positions vis-a-vis their daughters because they feel that they must sustain the marriage, and sustaining the marriage requires them to take certain kinds of positions vis-a-vis their daughters. So it's not as if, it's not as if the mother also is just this kind of person who can simply act. She tries very often, but she sometimes is not able to also do it. Yeah.
Don't we as psychologists put it in position that accused is violent because of certain situation? Is it, there's nothing about counseling of the accused as such. So, and the second point was that you were talking about consent and all these things. So I was wondering that we as women are not seen as sexual beings. We as women are only when we consent to marriage, it is said that okay, this is what I think. So is it important to focus on the women's sexuality and then the consent, or consent is, we are talking in the vacuum only?
No. See, we are seen as having a sexual body which is available.
Yes.
But there is no notion, or there is a difficulty in constructing the woman as having a desire of her own, right? And which she has to take charge of, and she has a right to say who does she want to fulfill this desire with and who does she not want to. They are seen as sexual bodies, but sexual bodies which are meant to fulfill usually the man, right? So that's, I just think the conception. So yes, of course, women's sexuality has to be foregrounded, and women's right to sexual choices has to be foregrounded. I would say everyone's right and consent, but I'm just saying that in a culture where consent is not the usual manner, like even if you look at parent-child relationships, etc., the kind of notion of consent which is actually there in other cultures, and there also probably it is a transformation. There's this book, Transformations of Intimacy, which I find that way quite interesting, that in all cultures maybe we are moving towards greater democratization of intimate relationships and of the way in which bodies and sexualities, etc. are going to be lived out, so that there is a degree of agency involved in it. Right? So वो हमारे यहाँ उतना है नहीं, मतलब. That's a slightly foreign idea. So we have to do a lot to be able to bring that in. Am I answering the question?
My question relates to mobilizing the perpetrators. I think one of my colleagues has already raised, we do a lot of counseling for victims. What about the perpetrators? And I would like to also relate, morning I wanted to raise questions on what it's means, so let me raise. Many of the panelists morning told we would like to see many more men and boys around here. And of course others also mentioned men and women together, much more in this room. I fully agree. I work on gender-related issues in the organization, and my experience for the past years, almost 10 years, have been that whenever we talk about gender-related issues, it's always equated with women. It's for women, and women have to listen. But I don't think we are moving ahead with talking on gender-related issues, particularly about gender discrimination and violence, talking only with women. Because the perpetrators, mostly not that women are not perpetrators, they are also, but in terms of percentage and the experiences, I think men being perpetrators are much more because of the kind of position that they have in society, because of our patriarchal norms and systems in the structures. So I just wanted to maybe hear from the panels, also from the participants from the floor, if they can suggest something. How do we mobilize men along with women to work on sensitizing them on gender equality and equity concerns? And how can there be counseling plan for perpetrators? Because we are only working with victims, and I think we are focusing only on one side. Thank you.
Feels that sometimes more counseling helping with these children because they come with a lot of guilt feelings. And it is working with such children as it is gender neutral, boys can be a victim as much as girls. And it is not just counseling, speaking. I go about it from their drawing. Discover which is the problem. All the time become symptoms of anger and acting out. Boys will be breaking, and girls will be sort of delirious, which is either turned into mental illness, or as in rural areas they call it possession. So they are and they are usually beaten for it. So this is the gift, which is the outcome of these little children who believe that they are at fault, they need to be punished. And I have just one mantra which I use, and that's this: "Tumhara koi kasoor nahi hai." It is not your fault. It is not your fault that you have been physically, sexually, emotionally abused. They're threatened by others if they open their mouth. So there's a lot which needs to be reassured. First of all, their self-esteem has to be raised, and I do that through light hypnosis, and then enforce the idea that it is not your fault. Tumhara koi kasoor nahi hai. And in this, our extent, in 1-2 sessions, it goes in deep. Because children are hungry for reassurance. And this is needed for incest victims, and I think it's through drawing and through reassurance of these little children. And also, before it happens, school children have to be educated, and I do that through buddy systems. That two students are friendly with each other and they will be together all the time, and with that child. A child is able to express herself or confide